Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Jamison Maxwell. And folks, it's hard to call it an emergency pod because everyone and their dog has kind of already talked about it already. Bit of an emergency pod. It's a special Crutin Corner episode. And Jamison, the news we got yesterday of the commitment of five-star defensive lineman David Stone, that's big enough for its own episode. So let's just go ahead, cut to the chase, dive into it, and talk about David Stone. Number 6 overall, like in the nation by 247's composite. He's the second defensive lineman in their rankings as well. Massive get for the Sooners.
Yes, and let me tell you something. OU fans love to go all doomsday, like the people on Sooner Scoop call it. Also, people love to just freak out, and we shouldn't have freaked out about David Stone. I've been saying this for a long time now. Save your nerves for something else. And I understand things got a little bit shaky at the end. Some people were worried about Miami. Some people were worried about Alabama. We can talk about that for a little bit. But when it all comes down to it, this guy was an Oklahoma kid through and through. And if anyone worried about this too much, I feel really bad for you. I'm sorry, but I'm glad that you got it now.
It was not worth the worry. In the end, he went where everyone expected him to go for the longest time. Oklahoma had an offer out to him for 2 years, an entire different coaching staff ago. So this guy felt destined to go to Oklahoma. Looked a little rocky there, here and there, just in terms of drama. He definitely loved to stir it up a little bit, throwing the U up a couple of days ago. And from what it sounds like, and I don't know if I buy it, him saying he made the decision in the moment. He looked at the Miami hat, reached for it. Like, come on. I don't know how much I believe him on that one.
That's complete baloney, and everyone knows it. And here's the thing. I'm going back to our text because I know I got a text from Bobby 1 week ago from today. So things looking real bad on Stone. So Bobby, you are also guilty of freaking out a little bit. This past week, things got nerve-wracking. We hear about David Stone's mom likes Miami a little bit better. He might want to actually live with her in Florida. I understand people started to worry about that. And then people were talking about, Alabama might be creeping in. Like when Nick Saban comes in, even if it's a little bit late, because he was late to this party. It's absolutely top 3 was Michigan State, Miami, and Oklahoma. But when Nick Saban comes knocking, you've got to listen to him. So I understand the freak out, but all in all, we should be absolutely ecstatic here because this is not a consolation to Williams Nwaneri. This is a guy that is a game changer for the rest of our future. And as the Oklahoma team moves into the SEC, this is not a consolation. Frame it in a better way. This guy is a game changer for us in the future.
Absolutely. He's absolutely big time. Getting a guy like this, when you're thinking of defensive linemen of this caliber that OU has gotten, you go to Gerald McCoy, you go to Tommy Harris, those type of names. This is a big deal. You can't let what happened with Nwaneri affect this at all. Mm-hmm. So absolutely just thrilled about this.
And it's one thing, 5-star defensive linemen we've had in the past, are committed in the past. They've sometimes been in the 20s and the 30s. This guy's a top 10 talent. This is a guy who went off to IMG, which takes a lot of talent to begin with, coming from Del City. This guy is an absolutely special talent. His wingspan is huge. He gets to the gets to the quarterback. Man, he is going to be a lot of fun. You bring him in with PJ Adebawari and what they can bring in the pass rush, him in the middle and PJ on the outside. I'm not even going to talk about the rest of the pieces that we have on the center defense. This guy is a foundation of a special unit that we've got brewing.
And he's so complimentary with Adebawari too. Those guys do so totally different things and they work in tandem together. It's incredibly exciting thinking about them playing together. Stone, to me, I feel like he's a day one type of guy who can really make an impact on this OU D line. And we've talked about how they've shored up a little bit. This is a totally different situation. He is a next level guy.
Yes, and I'm honestly ecstatic because we're seeing in this class especially, and then the next class even more so, that we are retaining a lot of Oklahoma's talent right now. And I think it is so, so important. How many times do we talk about on past podcasts, Bobby, of like we missing out on big time Oklahoma talent? Whenever you have a guy like this come through Oklahoma, if we missed out on him, that is a panic. You're absolutely right. We need to retain our in-state products because Oklahoma is not a Georgia where Georgia just breeds football talent in their state. Same thing with Texas. Oklahoma doesn't get that. We have to go to other states for the most part. But whenever you do get a top 10 guy in the nation, like David Stone, you've got to solidify it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, as we've talked about on the show many, many times, that's been a thing OU has kind of failed to do in the past. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, it's something they're improving on significantly. Any final thoughts on Stone before we talk about a little bit about where this class is headed next, as well as a couple more commitments we've picked up over the past couple days?
Yeah, we're just stay blessed about this, and I just don't see a scenario where he decommits at this point in his recruitment. He's been playing this game for so long. If he's going to come out and make this decision publicly, I just don't see how something would change in the coming months. Like there's some guys where it's like, okay, they made this decision. They made it really early on in their decision making, timeline. And whenever it comes December, yeah, they could get, moved to decommit and go to another team. David Stone is not one of those guys. He's not a latecomer. People have been looking at him for a really, really long time. The recruitment hype has been on him for a really, really long time. I just don't see this as a scenario where we lose him.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
And don't clip that.
No, do not clip that for sure. It would be pretty dramatic if we did lose him at this point, because
it had to be our fault. There's
right.
No way that unless OU really, really screws up this season or something very bad happens, I just don't see a scenario where we lose them.
Absolutely. I think it's exciting to get that hard, solid commit. This isn't like a soft commit. This isn't like maybe he, quiet committed, at the barbecue. This is for real. This is a big time deal. It's solid. It's legit. It's exciting. So I'm pumped about that. So now with Stone intact, still a lot of work to do. OU sitting around, I believe I've seen rankings around 11, 10, something like that, just dancing around the outside of the top 10. What is priority next for Brent Venables and that squad in terms of rounding out this class and seeing what they can do next?
I think everyone wants to talk about Nigel Smith. That's really what it is. And we talked about it beforehand coming on. Like, we have to talk about Nigel Smith. When we were talking about William Stoneri and David Stone and, Dominic McKinley and all these high hopes, yeah, I feel like people forgot to talk about Nigel Smith a lot. Nigel Smith is that guy who's going to plug in and be a really, really great player for this team. He's a pure athlete, multi-sport, basketball, football. His dad was a big-time basketball player. And we say like, oh, man, we missed out on all these five-star guys. We have to deal with Nigel Smith. Nigel Smith is the kind of guy for Oklahoma that we go crazy for if we get, aside from all of this David Stone and Nwaneri stuff. Like, he's a top 100 guy in the nation, and the amount of athleticism that he has is a great, great project to put next to guys like David Stone, who David Stone could be a day one guy, come in and play big-time minutes for this football team. Nigel Smith, you put him in the lab, you see what Jerry Schmidt does, and man, you see that athleticism come into full bloom. Like, he is a really fun guy to have in this defensive line class.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's the type of guy that in previous iterations of the team, I think we'd be going nuts over if we got him, in terms of a first guy. We've just had, this is such a very OU heavy D-line class that I think naturally people were excited about Williams Nwaneri, people excited about David Stone for good reason. But Nigel Smith, he's not chopped liver. This guy's good. Yeah. And definitely a guy who, like you said, get him in with Schmitty, get him in with Todd Bates, get him in with Miguel Chavis, that whole defensive line crew. Yeah, that is exciting stuff, to say the least. If we can land Nigel Smith, and a lot of people when the doom was coming heavy on David Stone, they're like, look, we lose Stone, we gotta get Nigel Smith, or else it's really over.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and he's committing on September 8th. So legitimately right around the corner. Like, say the word September, right around the corner. That is so weird. But it's about to come in like 2 weeks from now. So yeah. I've heard and what I've read. Okay, I got to stop saying I've heard. I don't have any sources. What I've read, it seems like OU is a strong lean here. Unless some kind of crazy surprise happens, I think Nigel Smith will be joining this Oklahoma recruiting class of 2024.
Yeah, and they're just fighting off Texas A&M, from what I understand, is it's those
Yes.
two. So, yeah, anytime you get the Aggies involved, that's they're basically in every race for a D lineman at this point. But at some point, you just hope the room's pretty packed. So,
yeah. Let's talk about other guys that we've got, Bobby. Who else do we got in the little graphic? If you guys aren't watching on YouTube, go do it right now. Bobby's been putting in some absolute work in the graphics. Got a new, if you're listening to the podcast, you're like, oh, it's the same old Schooner Pod intro sound. But there's a brand new Schooner Pod little intro graphic that looks absolutely sweet. We're going to probably talk about it again on our next episode. But he's making this process really interactive, bringing up graphics of these players and their recruiting rankings. It's a really fun watch. So go subscribe to us on YouTube because Bobby's putting in the work.
Oh, thank you, Jameson. I appreciate that. But yeah, let's move on to some of the new commits as well, because it wasn't just David Stone. And this one is one of those where I think we all kind of had an idea it was coming. We just didn't know when. And this just popped up, kind of surprised me. But Eli Bowen, Peyton Bowen's little brother, committing to the Sooners. If you look at the rankings, you would think probably, I don't want to say modest, 74th in Texas, 37th ranked cornerback in that class of 2024. But what does he bring to the table? Obviously, an exciting deal. What we've seen with Peyton Bowen, very, very thrilling. But what does Eli bring to the table?
Yeah, Eli's smaller than Peyton. Let's just put that out there. And I understand, was he just kind of this consolation offer because Peyton was offered? Maybe that might have been a little bit into it. But at the same time, he's a really good athlete. He might play a little slot cornerback, outside cornerback if he can put on some muscle. Maybe he's still growing. This kid is still young. You never know with growth spurts. But he's not the same body type as Peyton. But it's still a great addition to this class. And you say 74th in Texas. Texas got so much talent. Like this guy's still a borderline 4-star, 3-star kind of guy. And he had big time colleges going after him as well. So yes, I understand that we might say like, oh, it's just a family connection, but he's still a good piece for this class.
Yeah, and anytime you can beat Texas, that's pretty great. It seemed it was those two were the final two.
Yep.
And even though we had a significant advantage with the family connection, always good to get a win over the Longhorns there. All right, next let's move on to another name, Andy Bass out of Heritage Hall. Exciting stuff. I believe recruited as an athlete, 17th in the state of Oklahoma by the 247 composite,
which is ridiculous. 247 needs to get ahead of things because that's not absolutely right at all. 17th, are you kidding me? The way this guy plays is he's so much better than that.
It's this natural. I feel like Heritage Hall guys always are a little under recruited, a little undervalued. I mean, Gavin Freeman wasn't a massive commit by any means, but he's great. Obviously a great program there at Heritage with Brett Bogert in charge and everything going on. Anyways, Andy Bass, what does he bring to this Oklahoma offense? And what a great deal getting a really solid in-state guy that, like we mentioned in a couple podcasts ago, this is the type of guy that would absolutely go to Kansas State and then make us regret it the entire 4 years of him tearing it up on us.
Yeah, lifelong OU fan, and he had to decide, do I want to come to OU and get recruited as an athlete? And he's probably going to play slot wide receiver, just fall in line with his, old teammate Gavin Freeman, and come in this really good slot wide receiver base that we're growing here at OU. Or do you want to go to like a K-State or a Syracuse and play quarterback? And when it comes down to it, like this guy is so athletic. He is so fast that he's like, I'm going to go live out my dream. I'm going to play for OU because this is what I've always wanted to do. And to be honest with you, like, I'm sure you could do really well if you play quarterback in college football, but it's, being a slot wide receiver in this Oklahoma offense has shown and yielded to have really positive results for guys that are walk-ons. I'm pretty sure this is not a full scholarship offer for him. I think it's kind of one of those mixture NIL, kind of you pay him a little bit NIL money, and then he'll probably, if he continues to do well throughout the year, kind of get that scholarship offer like, Gavin Freeman just did last week. So this guy is really exciting. And I feel like people will talk about him just because he's, an in-state kid. And obviously we have the Heritage Hall connection because that's our alma mater, but let's just not compare him to Gavin Freeman and say like he's going to be the next big thing, but he is really special. His speed is so fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. An entirely different player from Gavin Freeman. And I think to me, he's the type of guy who you can really get creative with in an offense, really have some fun with. Obviously, he plays quarterback in high school. If you look at kind of, I mean, that's Jackson Arnold's position for the time being for quite a while. And they're not recruiting him to be a quarterback. But you have to imagine there's a lot of fun you can have if you're Jeff Lebby, what you can do with him, that he's a dynamic player that you can have just so much fun with. And I think that's a guy who you circle as, this is a wild card, weird player where, you can do some fun stuff with, to say the least.
Yeah. Honestly, really eventful August, kind of the end of summer in terms of recruiting. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully Nigel Smith kind of gets with that September. Do you have any other graphics you got for us, Bobby, in terms of guys that we didn't talk about already?
That is all I've got.
Yeah, I think this 2024 class is starting to come into form. But let me just give a quick shout out before we go about this 2025 class, because it is moving fast. And I kind of mentioned them a little bit earlier about like getting these okay preps guys. CJ Nixon, a 6'5" athlete out of Weatherford. Already committing to Oklahoma. Jaden Nickens from Millwood. Millwood is like a team that I feel like never really wanted to come to Oklahoma. We've always had troubles with them. Getting Jaden Nickens, one of the better wide receivers in the country, number 2 player in Oklahoma, big time move there. And then Nate Roberts as well, like decommitting from Notre Dame, like probably going to come to Oklahoma. That's the top 3, Oklahoma guys in 2025. And then number 4, Elijah Thomas, Oklahoma commit. Like, Kevin Sperry is at number 6, but he's probably going to see his ranking go up. Like, we are dominating OK Preps in 2025. Shout out to that. And we've got a really good class. It's going to be a fun class to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. For everyone who has complained about the lack of Oklahomans, lack of recruiting Oklahoma in the past, you're getting your wish. And, I feel like the talent in the state has gotten better. So I see it as nothing but a good thing. So I'm definitely excited about that. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it for a little Crutin Corner mini episode. If you're listening to this live, we're about to go on in about 9 minutes to preview Game 1 Arkansas State. We're bringing Ty on. It'll be a great time. Proper Schooner Pod. We are back in the rhythm there. But we definitely wanted to just kind of take this little this time to give Crutin Corner its proper due, especially with what has happened the past couple days. And if you're listening to this on podcast, look, I believe, I'm not sure about my editing schedule, but I believe the Arkansas State preview should be up. So go check that out if you want to hear us talk about the Sooners and the Red Wolves coming up this Saturday. Jameson, it feels weird to ask if you had any final thoughts when we're about to go into another hour-long podcast coming up. But send us out. This is your deal. This is your Crutin Corner.
Seriously, I hate saying go subscribe to us on YouTube, but please do it because we're putting in a lot of work. We're making things look good and we're really upping our game. Also, I've been churning out some TikToks and some YouTube shorts as well about depth chart projections. I understand a lot of people are talking about that in the OU media right now. But if you want a 1-minute form of each position group, go check that out on TikTok and in YouTube shorts. I think I also put them out on Facebook. I'm slowly getting it there, but they're coming out on TikTok first. Go check that out. Very, very, helpful if you're trying to figure out who's at what position moving on to the season.
Yeah, that's something we're working on. The quick hitting small content, because not everybody wants to listen to a full hour of me, you, and Ty ramble about the Sooners. So we're trying to diversify our content portfolio, to say the least. Well, I'm going to end this the way that we probably should have started it. I'm going to hit the music.
I was waiting for it. Give me.
Let's let our guy send us off here.
Jamison.
Yes. What is this?
Jamison.
This is a
Crutin Corner with Jamison.
Everybody dancing now. Oh, that's nice.
Oh, it was very nice. Have a good one, everyone. See y'all later for the Arkansas State preview. And Boomer Sooner, everybody.